This workshop is part of a series of mindscape activities that connects people to nature through art. Mindscape is a Wye Valley area of outstanding natural beauty and Artspace Synderford project. It's part of the Foresters Forest, the National Lottery Heritage Fund and the Landscape Partnership Programme. Each of the YouTube clips is accompanied by a step-by-step activity guide that you can download from the Artspace Synderford website. Hello and welcome to the Mindscape Activities Workshops. For this session we're going to make our own natural rustic hanging. Similar to this one here, it's basically a case of finding natural forms, possibly on a walk somewhere out in the countryside or maybe somewhere in your garden, and celebrating all their fantastic different shapes and sizes and textures and colours, and tying them to pieces of string and hanging them from, as in this case, a branch that I found in a tree that's come down in the garden. This one's still got a bit of moss and lichen on it, which I particularly liked. The materials I'm going to use, other than the found objects, are simply going to be some string. I've taken some natural string and dipped it in a little bit of weak tea just to change the colour, just take the edge off of that white sort of new look, so it's more sympathetic with the materials we'll be using with our natural forms. I've got a little bit of wire here that I'm going to use just to cage, to encapsulate some things like bits of glass or pebbles, as it's been an easy way of then tying it into our strands of string. I've obviously got some scissors, and I've got a pair of pliers here to hold on to things like the shells, where I'm going to use a cordless drill just to create a small hole through the centre so we can thread our string through. I do have a block of wood just to protect any surfaces and some goggles for when I do that. So let's have a closer look at this example. There really is quite a variety of different objects here, and it's lovely just to touch them, to select them, to arrange them and put them into an attractive order, which you can then hang possibly out in your garden, maybe indoors, maybe something like a conservatory. For this particular example, I've got things like, this is just a chunk of birch bark. You can just see the white sort of side, hopefully picking up on the camera there. An interesting rock, again I've encapsulated that in wire. This is a little chunk of bark from a Scots pine. It's got that lovely sort of reddy orange colour to it, and obviously a pine cone. Here we've got a little chunk of silver birch, a little chip that I've sawn off the edge of a branch. And not exactly Forester Dean and Wye Valley, but I've also put some shells into this. I bought some shells off of the internet, and I've integrated that into the design as part of sort of natural objects really. A bit of coal, can't go without a bit of forest coal. How about that, a lovely bit of curled up bark that I found off of a birch. The other objects I've got here, the old vertebrae from the sheep, the forest sheep, some well nibbled pine cones, rusty old nut, this lovely fragment of glass that I think I'm going to incorporate on the demonstration piece that I do now. Another just oddly shaped bits of wood. Wherever you make this, we're all going to end up with different materials. It just depends on where you live, what you can find at that particular point in time. So yours won't look exactly like this, but I'd encourage you to get out into the countryside, maybe into the garden, wherever the learners are, and have a little wander around and pick up a variety of beautiful little objects that you can use for this natural hanging. Well, I've already started this piece. There are 4 strands of objects there, I'm going to create a fifth one now to put into the middle. So I'll just put that to one side and we'll go through the process. The first thing you need to do is select your objects. Conveniently, I'm going to take these, as I've selected them before, and take a piece of string and cut out an appropriate length. Best to have a bit more than a bit less. Now, for these pieces, I'm going to need a little bit of wire to wrap around this glass, which I can then thread the string through. I think I better put a pilot hole through here with my drill, again, so I can thread my string through. It looks like my vertebrae already has a hole through it, so that's going to be quite simple. I can just thread it through and create a knot. Similarly here, I think I'll just wrap it around and tie a knot, and I'll pop a drill hole through this as well. Okay, so let's take this bit of wire first. This is a bit of modelling wire, but you could use any malleable, sort of pliable wire. I use my pliers just to cut it. And I'm simply just going to wrap it around. Nothing particularly complicated there, just enough to keep it in place. I know that I can thread some string through it. Now, things like the bark or the shells, we'll use the drill, a block of wood. When I've done these types of activities before with learners, it is a case of gauging who's independent enough to be using tools like this. So if you feel that somebody is capable of using this by themselves, and I've worked with a lot of people who do feel quite empowered by using the tools. They maybe haven't used them for a long time, and they are actually quite capable of doing it. Some people, of course, may need your help. You may have to do it for them, or maybe you could steady something and hold something as they do it. It's, I think, beneficial if people can do as much as they are able to do when working on these types of activities. Right, so let's take the, where should I drill it? I'll drill it that side. Take the shell, a block of wood just to protect the table. I'll just pop a hole through the top there. Okay, job done. And I'll do the same with this little fragment of bark. Okay. There have been times, as you would expect, when I've drilled through some objects and they break, and that's how it goes. You can always find something different, but more often than not, I've managed to get away with it. So let's move that out of the way. And how about that for an order? What should we do? That's quite nice. Let's go for that. Yeah. Okay. So, take my piece of string. I'm looking at this as if this piece were the bottom. So this is going to be the lowest piece whilst it's hanging with the other bits and pieces. So I'm going to start on this object first, and I'm going to tie around it. And as I've probably said before, I'm not great at knots. So don't expect anything too amazing here. Just enough for it to hold on to the object. Okay, so I'm now going to move up slightly. I'll go through this piece of bone. I'm trying to roughly get the same sort of spacing as I have with the other bits and pieces. So when they all hang together, there's a sort of unity. Okay. As I say, no prizes for knots, certainly not from me. In some cases it's handy just to have a little tool to poke through the hole. Okay, might just pop another onto there to secure it. And our shell. Oh, what are we doing there? That's better. Here we go. And then lastly, you've got this lovely bit of glass. If I can just find an area there that I can tie it through. That seems roughly spaced out evenly. Okay. There we go. So a fairly straightforward bit of tying there. Now I'm going to have in total 5 hanging pieces. Now it will just be a case of tying it onto this main branch, onto this main top bar. Okay. And I think I did just get away with that in terms of how much string I chose. There we go. So, I don't know if the camera's going to pick up on this, but that blowing around in the wind creates quite an attractive natural wall hanging. So I hope you have fun finding your objects and selecting them. As I say, be careful with the drill and work out who would be capable of using it and who wouldn't. These would look fantastic, as I say, in the garden, maybe indoors somewhere. You could put an extra little bit of string to hang them up, or even attach them to a tree or something.